Our first question is an evidence pair where all the line references are basically concentrated in the first part of the passage, which makes sense because of the chronology rule. We would, generally like to see the first set of questions have an answer early on in the passage. But even still, we can get a little bit of a boost from the next question, question 14, which tells us to look in lines 26 to 28. And so, according to the chronology rule, choice D here, not really looking good. Now, we still need to read it, but it would break the chronology if that choice were right, and usually that's not going to happen. So that might help us if we get kind of stuck between some of these answer choices. But what we really want to do with these questions is make sure we're following the QLC method so that we have a process. We're not getting lost in all the information that they're giving us. We want to make sure we have a plan throughout the entire process as we switch between two different questions. So first and foremost, the Q part is to read the question. Let's make sure we understand what we're looking for. According to Brynjolfsson and McAfee, advancements in technology since approximately the year 2000 have resulted in, okay? So technology since 2000, and it's these two guys. That's 3 pieces of information that I'm now going to look for in these lines. And one thing I think that's really just important to note is I do care which people we're talking about, because sometimes with these passages they're bringing in lots of people's opinions into the argument, and we want to make sure that if they're asking about specific people, we give information about those specific people. So let's just go ahead. Let's go to these lines 1 through 6. Now we go to the L part of the QLC method, which is the line references. So let's take a look. 1 through 6 is right here. MIT business scholars Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee have argued that impressive advances in computer technology, from improved industrial robotics to automated translation services, are largely behind the sluggish employment growth of the last 10 to 15 years. So right away that jumps out as probably right, or at least worthy of consideration, right? It talks about the right two people, Brynjolfsson and McAfee. It's talking about advances in technology, right? Look at the question, advancements in technology. Maybe it's a trap that it's the same words, but at least I got to consider it. And then since approximately the year 2000, so the last 10 to 15 years is a slightly different way of saying that. But, it's, at least right now when I'm doing this, it's 2020, and, the passage was written a few years ago. So, yeah, 10 to 15 years gets us into the right time zone. So this is checking off that box as well. And so what else might we kind of preemptively notice about these lines that might help us down the road? Well, it's talking about sluggish employment growth. So look, I might just come down to this choice and write low employment. Something like that, just to kind of keep myself aware of what I read. I don't expect my brain to remember it. There's 52 questions in the section. There's 4 long sections on the SAT. I mean, your brain can only handle so much. Give it a break. Write down things when you can. So let's look at 13 to 15. That looks like a pretty good choice. 13 to 15, right here. That robots, automation, and software can replace people might seem obvious to anyone who's worked in automotive manufacturing or as a travel agent. This seems kind of random, right? It's not talking about these two guys. It's not talking about the last 10 to 15 years or since the year 2000. It's not really talking about, I guess maybe advancements in technology it's talking about, robots, automation, and software. So maybe that checks the box. But notice there's only one thing here that matches with my question, whereas choice A had like 3 things that matched. So that's not a great sign. I would feel pretty confident getting rid of this choice. It's just not related enough to what the question is asking for. Let's look at 21 to 23, choice C, right here. And they suspect something similar is happening in other technologically advanced countries. Okay, well, what's the something similar? Okay, let's go back a little bit. Brynjolfsson and McAfee's claim is more troubling and controversial. They believe that rapid technological change has been destroying jobs faster than it is creating them, contributing to the stagnation of median income and the growth of inequality in the United States. And they suspect something similar is happening in other technologically advanced countries. So I don't really love this choice either. It seems a little far removed from the ideas that I'm looking for, but if we go back to understand the kind of pronoun here, we do see that it's got some of those key ideas. Maybe we jot down some sort of note here. The something similar in other technologically advanced countries is Yeah, low jobs, right? It's destroying jobs, stagnation of median income, so low income, growth of inequality. So this is listing a bunch of things. I'm just going to say bad economy, just to keep it simple. So there you go. Another thing to kind of remind me, and I messed up. That's supposed to be right down here for choice C instead. All right, let's look at D, 35 to 38. Okay. Right here, starting randomly at the colon, not at the start of the sentence. Okay. As businesses generated more value from their workers, the country as a whole became richer, which fueled more economic activity and created even more jobs. Well, that seems to say the opposite, that the economy is good. But notice, the next line, which we're not supposed to read, it doesn't really pertain, we don't really need to understand it in order to understand this line reference, but it does give us a big clue. For some people, this is going to be a trap, because it says beginning in 2000, which is kind of what the question itself is asking for. But notice, it's shifting. It's saying then beginning in 2000, meaning what we just read happened before the year 2000. So this does not work. And I kind of already suspected that based on the chronology rule, but now we have 2 strikes against the choice, and that would be enough for me to eliminate it here. So we're down to 2, and that's okay. Our job at this stage of the QLC method with evidence pairs is not to necessarily get down to 1 line reference. I definitely have a favorite. I like A best. But C was related enough that I'm going to keep it in the mix. And now when I go to the choices, the last part of the QLC method, I'm going to be able to sort through those and compare them to my line references and see if I can find anything that is a really good match. So what do we see? Low job growth in the United States. Well, that's pretty much what I wrote down. Low employment, low jobs, that kind of is the same thing. Let's keep looking though. Global workplace changes. Well, that's kind of vague. One of those changes might be the low growth. Maybe that has something to do with the choice C. Something similar is happening in other technologically advanced countries, so that's maybe global, and we're talking about the United States in the lines previous. I don't know. Maybe it's a fit, but notice how much more work I'm doing to make choice B fit with line reference C as compared to the way I was able to just kind of instantly see that choice A matched with line reference A, right? The choices that require me to do less are better choices because the lines are supposed to do the work, not me twisting the lines to fit. It should, as much as possible, just say what we needed to say. So maybe we'll keep this, but I don't know. Global, it didn't seem to be everywhere. It seemed to be certain countries, and changes is not really as specific as I'd like to be, but let's keep looking. More skilled laborers in the United States. Well, no. It seems to be saying in both of my line references that things are bad, and that choice seems to be saying that things are good. So, no, I don't like that. D, no global creation of new jobs. Well, again, that kind of seems to match with what I said about low employment, but there's a big difference between low growth and no growth, right? You got to notice those kinds of differences because sometimes a question hinges on that kind of difference between 2 choices. So without practice, you might look at those choices A and D and see that they say the exact same thing. They don't. They say similar things. But the difference between similar and same is the difference between right and wrong. We need to make sure we understand when we have 2 choices that are similar, there must be something different. Your job is to find that something. And in this case, having low growth means we still have some growth. Whereas having no job creation is very, very strong. And so that's going to cause a problem. We know that strong words on the SAT can get us in trouble. And so look, I'm already leaning towards A and A because it was such a good match. I can go read A again and make sure, lines 1 through 6. What is it saying? These guys, Brynjolfsson and McAfee, have argued that impressive advances in computer technology, from improved industrial robotics to automated translation services, are largely behind the sluggish employment growth of the last 10 to 15 years. So sluggish employment growth is the same as saying low job growth. They literally are just using the same words with synonyms, right? Sluggish means low. Employment growth is the same thing as job growth. And in the United States, I guess it's not exactly saying that. But the whole passage is kind of about that. I mean, we saw the United States down here, so I'd be fine making that assumption. That seems okay. So there you go. Those are the answers, and I'd be very confident in that. I'm making maybe one small leap to make it work, but that's much better than trying to get line C to work, where I'd have to kind of do a lot more massaging of the lines to make them fit into the choice. So the more you stick to the process, the more you will notice the connections, and you won't be relying too much on your instincts. You'll be able to match ideas, match words, and be confident in your answer. There's a process, then you get an answer from the process. When there's no process, anything can happen, and that's not good.